We have never had a more contentious election. We have rarely seen such deep-rooted animosities and hostilities in America. Our nation is divided by ideology and perspective so greatly that it almost seems to be living in two separate realities. These realities are built upon by an incessant stream of video, news, commentary, and sometimes false information, which bolster the polar opposite realities and further stoke the fires of division and hate. Will this raging fire of division tear the country apart? That remains to be seen. What we do know is that at some point after Election Day, whether the people, the Electoral College, the House of Representatives, or the Supreme Court decides it, Trump or Biden will be our president. In this video, we will examine what may happen when Trump is our president for a second term. What would the populist reaction, the political moves, and what can we do to stay safe? Please consider subscribing to our newsletter to give you updates and member-specific content. Visit www.cityprepping.com/newsletter or click on the link in the description and comment section below to subscribe today. Enjoy the video. The populist reaction. You probably clicked on this video because you strongly agreed or strongly disagreed with the title. Assuming you consider yourself a relatively calm and level-headed person, take that deep-rooted feeling in you, multiply it by 100 or more, and spread it out over the entire United States. And that's the reaction you will get from the populace after this election concludes. Look at how contentious and vitriolic the comments section is probably right now. You'll find someone in there that would label you as crazy, regardless of which candidate wins the election. To say there is an abundance of energy about this election outcome would be an understatement. So, how will the populace react to Trump winning a second term? After the 2016 election, millions of voters took to the streets to express their frustrations over a popular vote that went one way and an electoral vote that went another way. While that scenario wasn't new to the political landscape, America saw a larger outcropping of people in the streets than they had ever seen before. Still, by today's new standards, that crowd, even as large as it was pretty tame, calm, and peaceful. Will conflict spread onto the streets in cities near you? I can't say that with certainty, but the American population seems to think so. Sales and online purchases of tactical apparel have experienced a 20-fold increase in sales this year. According to the founder of Mere Safety, it doesn't always matter who gets elected. They, his customers, think that no matter who wins, Biden or Trump, there are going to be a lot of people who are upset with the result. A shift became apparent with this spring's Black Lives Matter protests and bitterly resented pandemic lockdowns. Now the gear is everywhere, from camouflage-clad Antifa supporters to right-wing extremists who appeared at Michigan's Capitol even after men were arrested in a plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And Americans on both sides of the political spectrum are heavily armed. Guns and ammo sales across the country have also surged. The U.S. population accounts for 46% of the global total of all small firearms. This amounts to 120 firearms for every 100 residents. So what happens when an angry and heavily armed mob of people take to the streets and are met with an equally and or more heavily armed opposition? Trump, who has established his reputation as the law and order president and has shown himself to be with his use of federal forces to suppress insurrection, will not tolerate American streets turned into war zones. Likewise, an army of Trump will undoubtedly take to the streets to defend America. Whatever comes of this scenario, it isn't good for the population as a whole or for the country. Dissent, when Trump wins re-election, might not rise to the point of armed events, but it could take other forms that could impact your life nonetheless. Liberal-leaning unions may encourage their employees to have a sick-out or an organized period of unwarranted sick leave taken as a form of group protest. What happens to an economy struggling to regain its posture from the effects of the lockdown suffers further from the economic effects of a walkout or strike from a union or labor organization currently endorsing Biden, like the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, the Service Employees International Union, or the United Food and Commercial Workers. Combined, these organizations have nearly 10 million members. Not only would the economy as a whole suffer, but disruptions to food and fuel services, emergency and police services, and normal day-to-day operations would be highly likely. And this underscores the need to prepare, even with a clear Trump victory. The world's reaction. How will the world react to Trump's win? His hard stance on NATO paying their fair share of their own defenses, which they are now doing, his ongoing trade war with China, his further closing of borders and tightening of citizenship and immigration policies will undoubtedly further frustrate other countries. Add to this that America's adversaries aren't suddenly going to stop their planned and real physical and virtual attacks on us. Though we have enemies growing from within, our enemies who are foreign adversaries continue to threaten our American way of life. Will Israel, a country that has somewhat aligned itself with this administration, be emboldened enough to take on the nuclear threat that is Iran? Could that draw us into yet another conflict in the Middle East? Will China, frustrated by the continued trade war and retaliation for a cultural loss of face for allowing the COVID-19 virus to escape their borders, launch a cryptocurrency pegged to the yuan to destabilize the US dollar, seize more land and airspace in the South China Sea, tear up trade agreements or forge new ones to the exclusion of the United States? There are countless more scenarios with many other countries that could threaten our economic stability, draw America into a foreign conflict. Even if the whole nation doesn't react in any significant way, we have had to remain vigilant to the fact that terrorist groups and clandestine operations by foreign governments remain a threat to our security. Either could seek to amplify our divisiveness and further our divide by bringing down infrastructure systems or creating violent conflicts, and we're sitting in the shadows while the finger pointing continues. The effects of just one explosion by an unknown adversary on election day could put the entire election in question. That chaos may not be a result of any American citizen's action, but the reaction could further our divide. In short, our enemies aren't cowering in fear right now. They're emboldened and encouraged by our division because of the opportunities it creates to destroy our way of life. When Trump, who globally seems to be considered an underdog in this election, wins, the global perception of America may change. Could other countries seek to align themselves without the United States and even push for fiat currency to compete against the US dollar? Only history will tell. As one writer put it, looking back on US diplomatic history, one of the great counterfactuals is what would have happened if Franklin D. Roosevelt had not replaced his vice president, Henry Wallace, with Harry Truman in 1944. Wallace was sympathetic to the Soviet Union and became an ardent opponent to the Cold War. If he had been president when FDR died in April of 1945, the next half-century would have been completely different. Likely no NATO, no Marshall Plan, no alliance with Japan, no overseas troop presence, and no European Union. Undeniably, the global view of America might change significantly when Trump wins. Trump's tough foreign policies and refusal to allow America to be a part of agreements he doesn't feel are in America's best interests have ruffled a few feathers and antagonized a few allies who are currently adopting a wait-and-see attitude to see if Trump's first term was an American blip or a signal of a new American way of thinking and acting on a world stage. We could become globally more unified or more divided with our policies. We could be perceived as stronger or weaker. Much will be determined by Trump's second-term political moves. Presidents and their policies determine and guide global perceptions. The political moves. Politically, when Trump wins his second term, he will be emboldened by the endorsement of the American people, further secure his loyalists around him, and double down on his policy issues established in the first 4 years. His policies of the anti-establishment government will have more strength and more teeth. The traditional government structures will be changed. Likely, we could see someone like Jared Kushner as the National Security Advisor. We would see more executive actions. We would see more court cases decided in favor of the administration by a conservative Supreme Court. Very likely, those who enter the country illegally or were born here from parents who enter the country illegally will be denied government social services and in some cases deported. That wall that has been talked about will probably be built. The Affordable Care Act will undoubtedly be overturned because of the unconstitutionality of the individual mandate invalidating it. And before the plan Trump plans on implementing is put into place, many will not have health care. School choice will become the norm, and a host of other policy issues will be decided and implemented. Traditional and long-standing laws that favored the establishment government will be challenged and decided. Investigations launched by Democrats will be stopped, and Democrats will be investigated for their alleged crimes. The political moves of President Trump in his second term will significantly change the American landscape, but they will also be perceived as too drastic and jarring by large swaths of the country. Whole states may resist federally mandated changes. Populous areas of the country with liberal leadership may dissent in large numbers and may be met with equal or greater forces, federal and civilian, defending Trump. What you need to prepare for. So what can you do now? What should you do? What should you prepare for? First, you need to adopt a calm and rational observation stance of what is going on around you. Realize that any conflict may actually have been started by a foreign adversary. Don't rush to blame until you clearly see all the facts. Second, prepare for the need to lock down during any periods of heightened civil unrest. Prepare yourself by watching some of the other informative videos on this channel or visiting cityprepping.com. I've recently done videos on protecting your neighborhood from rioters, protecting your home from intruders, and even items to grab at Walmart right now before it's too late. If any pockets of chaos do spring up, it may take a long period of time before the government can reestablish control. Attacks on our power grid and other critical infrastructures cannot be entirely ruled out, as our nation's enemies will seek to amplify divisions in our country. Your preparations for successfully living off-grid for a period of time will be of great benefit to you. Make any remaining purchases of items you need to complete your inventory and supplies prior to Election Day. Here I'm not suggesting you mortgage a farm or run up your credit cards. Just bolster your supplies and durable goods as much as you can, within reason, and keep a keen focus on the essentials of food, water, durable goods, and personal protection. Prepare now. What we do know is that at some point after Election Day, whether the people, the Electoral College, the House of Representatives, or the Supreme Court decides it, Trump or Biden will be our president. Given this nation's deepening divisions and ideological perspectives in polar opposition to each other, we have to rationally accept the possibility that any presidential win will not be met with widespread acceptance and good-heartedness. It is the resulting conflicts that can arise from within or from other adversaries who would seek to do us harm that we should prepare for. With this event, this election, prepare like you know the natural disaster is coming, like you can see it approaching on the Doppler radar. If nothing at all happens and everything remains calm everywhere, you will be prepared for other disasters that may come in the future. So preparation now will still benefit you later. I'd love to hear your post-election predictions. I know most of us hope we will see nothing out of the unusual, but I would love to hear your comments below. To see what will happen when Biden wins the election, click on that link in the video. I'll post a link in the cards above, as I've created a separate video to give this possibility equal time. Always take the time during the first few hours after a video is released to read and respond to comments. Subscribe to this channel or my newsletter for member-specific content, and as always, stay safe out there.